I'm sitting down with Jon Taffer, the owner of Taffer's Tavern and the host of Bar Rescue. Jon, thanks for sitting down with me.
Good to be here.
All right, so Jon, I think most people probably are familiar with you and your career, and especially Bar Rescue. But for those who lived under a rock and aren't familiar, give us a little background of how you got into the restaurant space.
I actually went to college for political science.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm glad I didn't go into that business. But I started tending bar in college at University of Denver. And I fell in love with the business. And then I became a general manager, became a vice president, became a hotel manager, became a resort food and beverage director, and really ran bars, restaurants, nightclubs, and hotel properties. So I found when I was in my young 30s that I had a wealth of experience across categories that most people didn't have. Yeah. And in 1986, I started my own company. Tax codes had changed, and hotel operators didn't have the write-offs they used to for restaurants and bars. So suddenly the hotel industry had to make profit centers out of them, not guest amenities.
Right.
So I created a company, and we did hundreds and hundreds of hotel projects all over the world, creating food and beverage operations in hotels that would compete with independents, which was a challenge back then. Yeah. So that's how we built the company. So I really got my chops turning things around that weren't successful, turning around hotel restaurants. And 9 out of 10 times they would say to me, Jon, turn this around, and by the way, we have no money. So then it became that we had to come up with ideas. So we came up with things like positive picketing. Positive picketing is picket signs that say price is too low, food too good, price is unfair to competition, restrooms too clean, coffee too good. And we would picket in front of a restaurant 6 days and revenues would double.
Wow.
And it cost $80 in picket signs to do. Yeah. So we got really good at creating marketing programs that weren't expensive, but were very effective.
Yeah.
And then we created the Neighborhood Marketing Institute and created neighborhood marketing programs for many, many restaurant chains. Consulted to pretty much the top 100, pretty much all of them over the years. And then just pre-pandemic, people have asked me to open restaurants for years and brand it. Partners, let's license it. I never wanted to do it. Suddenly it felt right to me, but I had to do it myself. I wasn't going to license it. Yeah. So I own 100% of Taffer's Tavern. Put every dollar in it myself, invested it myself. I'm the only creditor, I'm the only debtor. So when it came time to say, you know what, TV is so overwhelming. The company is getting bigger. Can't run it part-time. I can't go off for a month and make TV and leave the restaurant. So Craveworthy is an incredible company, and I love Greg. And they have the same kind of standards and values that I have. So we created a great partnership now, and I can focus on building the brand and they can focus on building the company.
Right in your wheelhouse, I bet.
Perfect.
All right, so obviously with Bar Rescue, you come in and you help these operators fix what's wrong with their brand. You are a fix-it guy, as you're talking about with those hotels. I'm curious, coming into starting your own restaurant concept, what were the most common mistakes people were making that you know now in advance not to make for your own operation?
Yeah, well, I've seen so many failures. And, I find that restaurant operators tend to fit in two camps. Either they're numbers and accounting oriented or they're front of the house oriented. And it's hard to find one that's both. One that knows every one of his customers and knows his numbers, right? That's a real challenge. So in developing my career, every bar rescue I go to, every restaurant I've rescued, even corporations and GMs, they all suffer from the same problem. Either they're revenue oriented or they're expense oriented, but they're not both. I, at a very young age, became revenue oriented. They'd send me to a hotel, I'd raise the revenues 20%, they'd send me to a bigger hotel, a bigger. I moved 11 times in 5 years and my income went up 800% as an employee.
Wow.
Because I know how to raise revenue. Yeah. I know how to pump dollars. And I say to everyone in our business, none of us have expense problems. We only have revenue problems. Revenue cures everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm a revenue guy. Yeah. I live and die revenues. And that's how I've built these companies with that kind of focus.
So with Taffer's Tavern, when you did launch this brand, what was the experience you were trying to create for customers?
To we say a bar is a bar, but a tavern has soul. Yeah. A tavern has roots back to a pub. The second public building ever built in America was a pub. First was a church. There were no city halls. There were no hotel meeting rooms. That's where state lines were negotiated. And it was the center of the community. That's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create a concept that wouldn't be owned by a corporation with 100 units, would be individually owned, in a community and be part of a community in a great tradition of what a tavern should be. But we created what we are calling an elevated tavern experience. Food is exceptional. Presentations are fantastic. I believe we have the best in category beverage program in the country.
Yeah.
And as a result, we run about 50% beverage sales.
Wow.
Even Buffalo Wild Wings, nobody runs that kind of number.
Yeah.
So imagine the impact on profits
It's a high
that it
margin
creates. But it's unique, and the brand is unique. You see, there's a lot of chefs out there, but I'm the only guy in the bar space.
Yeah.
So I don't share that with anyone else. And it's really unique, whereas, Gordon and Guy and Robert Irvine, they all share that culinary space, but I don't have to share the bar space. I'm lucky.
Yeah, that's right. Good for you for identifying that opportunity.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned, obviously beverage right now. Beverage is everywhere. We're at the restaurant show where there's a lot of innovation in beverage. We look at it, even the major chains are innovating with beverage and rolling out, diversified beverage offerings. What's happening with beverage right now from your perspective? What do consumers want?
Yeah, we've seen that the young generation has a significant drop-off in consumption. We've read that, and it's real.
Yeah.
What we're finding is the younger element of that sector, not as much. And here's where I think has happened. I think during the pandemic, socialization disappeared.
Yeah.
I didn't meet you for a drink anymore.
Right.
If we drank, we did it on Zoom together.
Yeah.
So that socialization disappeared from a certain element of our population. So when they go out to socialize, they go home.
Yeah.
Whereas my generation and your generation, we went to bars. That's where we socialized. So I think that COVID blip is impacting consumption to some degree. And we're expecting about a 7% drop this summer in the restaurant industry, as we know in traffic is the forecast. So I think that all of us need to take a deep breath in this industry, and I put this forth for everybody to listen very loudly. We're starting to lose our value proposition as an industry.
Okay.
COVID, we pushed.
Yeah.
The tariffs haven't even happened yet, and people are pushing prices.
Right.
Somebody sent me a photograph from a menu board at a fast casual restaurant just last night.
Okay.
A Coke is $7.99.
$7.99. Wow.
Now, we as an industry need to be very careful.
Yeah.
In these next 6 months to a year, either we are going to reconnect with the value proposition with our customers, or we're not going to reconnect with that value proposition. And I suggest that brands take a very hard look at that before we start pushing pricing to the point that fast casual is almost the same price as fine dining.
Totally. Yeah. You mentioned value. When it comes to beverage and value, I see a lot of trying to create experience around beverage with like dirty soda as an example. Yeah, you put in your own creams and syrups and fruits or whatever, and it becomes almost like an experience, a DIY kind of thing.
Yes.
Do you see the same thing where consumers are looking for experience in their beverage?
Absolutely. And I think they're looking for personalization too. We're working with a company now that has a robotic bartender. 56 tubes. Nothing shares a tube. Some are chilled, some are not. And it does 700 drinks. But you can go into the bar, open an app, put in your own cocktail. The Jon Fire cocktail, put it in, it'll make it for you, and then you can send that link to all your friends. When they come to the bar, they can have your cocktail.
Yeah.
So I think personalization has a lot to do with it, but even with the reduction of beverage that we're facing now, flavors prevail.
Yeah.
Flavorful things still sell. Great presentations still sell. So we got to work a little harder for that dollar, but I suggest the dollar's still there.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned how consumption is down among young generation especially, and it's interesting because my own story, my wife and I stopped drinking on weekdays, tried to take care of our health, but one of the ways that became easier to do is there's so much more non-alcoholic beverages available to us, including a lot of beverages that taste like alcohol but don't have alcohol in it. What do you make of the non-alcohol trend? Do you see opportunity in it?
I do see opportunity in it. And it's an opportunity. Look, as an industry, I used to do a lot of market research for the hotel industry, and for most mid-scale restaurants, on lunch, even pre-pandemic, 1 out of 6 people ordered a cocktail for lunch as an industry. But what did we do as an industry? We focused on upselling that 1 out of 6, and we ignored the other 5.
Oh, yeah.
We never upsold them. Now, I've always felt that we should have premium soft drink programs where we upsell those 6 out of 7, not the 1 out of 7. And in today's environment, we need to do that. A lot of that is taking place right now in Taffer's Tavern.
Yeah.
Where we're looking at really creating fun, dynamic beverages that don't necessarily have alcohol, or just a touch of alcohol for flavor.
Sure.
Just 1/4 of an ounce.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
All right, you mentioned Craveworthy. Yeah. Obviously, you guys are here to announce some pretty big news. You guys have partnered with Craveworthy. For those who are not familiar with Craveworthy, of course, it's this portfolio of concepts, 15 or 16, 17, I think now with Taffer's Tavern, under Greg Majewski leading this brand. What do you see as the opportunity now as part of Craveworthy?
Well, first of all, I love Greg.
Yeah.
He shares the same operating philosophies that we do. I think I've done a great job creating the Tavern concept. Greg and I feel this way. We've got a great brand. The brand represents best in practices. Because I own the beverage space as a brand, we run a 50% beverage sales, which is a huge contributor to the bottom line. No casual concept can run quite that percentage of beverage sales. So I saw an opportunity for Greg to take my standards, my vision, and run with it. And he had a great appreciation for my brand. And we only started talking about 6 weeks ago, and the deal's already done.
Wow.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
That's how much we linked up. But Josh Halpern and Sam Stanovich are both with Craveworthy, are both good friends of mine. Josh and I worked together when he was with Anheuser-Busch.
Oh, sure.
And I was a consultant to Anheuser-Busch. And when Sam was here at the NRA, we used to work together.
Oh, nice.
So it feels like family to me. And Greg is just a great operator, one of the best, and a heck of a guy.
Yeah, what do you think is possible now with under the Craveworthy banner? You looking to scale this thing around the country?
We are. We are very aggressively.
Yeah.
And we feel that we have a model. It's not a big investment in. We think we can build them for under $1 million, which is a great number.
Yeah.
And do some fantastic revenues. And again, with that 50% beverage margin, it's hard not to make money in that kind of model.
Right. Well, and to that point, right now, obviously the economy is relatively volatile. Everybody's talking about uncertainty because nobody knows what happens with tariffs, et cetera. So it feels like a lot of folks have kind of pumped the brakes on growth. What does the climate look like for growth for Taffer's Tavern? What's the key unlock here that's going to allow you guys to grow even in this kind of volatile economy?
I think economics is a large part of it. The right type of investment in and the right type of ROI and the right operating margins. We think we have all that. Prime cost at about 50%. So we think we have that economic model. And then a progressive brand that has really market recognition. And a lot of emerging brands, you buy the franchise because it has all the systems. But you have to build a brand yourself because it doesn't exist in your market. We have a pre-existing brand that has a reputation, a credibility in the market. So it's easier for us to walk into that market space. What we don't want to do is sell 100 franchises to a guy in Denver who's going to build them in Chicago.
Right.
We want community connection. We want local operators to operate these. And that's a lot of our vision.
Yeah. All right, John, last question for you. You're the fix-it guy. So, again, this year, a pretty tough year for a lot of operators. They're wondering what's next. How can I fix what might be wrong? What's your advice for getting out of a tough climate like this? What's your advice to operators who feel stuck and how to get that spark lit again for growth?
I say we're never stuck. During the pandemic, I had friends that made a fortune. They put together family meals for 4 people for $79. You got an apple pie and you got a dessert and they delivered it. I had friends that made a fortune during the pandemic because they were nimble, they aligned, and they reacted to the marketplace. That opportunity always exists for us. So some of us are going to be nimble, perceptive, and reactive, and we're going to make money. Others are going to get scared and they're going to freeze and they won't. But I wrote a book called Don't BS Yourself years ago, and I broke down the 4 biggest excuses that we have in this industry. And let me share this with you.
Sure.
This is really important. 120th episode of Bar Rescue. I'm in Detroit, Michigan, and I asked this woman why she's failing in her bar. I ask every operator that question. Woman looked at me and said, "John, I'm failing because of the euro in Greece." In Detroit, Michigan.
Really?
I went back to my hotel room that night and I realized I found a common denominator of failure. Excuses.
Oh, yeah.
See, if I wake up in the morning and use an excuse, if I look in the mirror and blame my failure on the economy or Trump or whatever, I have no reason to change. It's not my fault, it's their fault. But if I wake up in the morning and say, pandemic, tariffs, I can make money, I do change. So the biggest mistake we make is excuses. And we use excuses when we fall short of something, when we did something we shouldn't have. So we fail, we come up with an excuse, and then we sleep like a baby. Don't sleep like a baby. Don't accept the excuse. Don't accept any reason to freeze.
Yeah.
As an industry, we don't freeze. We move forward. We're nimble. We adjust to market conditions. We adjust to flavor profiles. We adjust to demographics. We adjust to so many things day to day in our business. Don't freeze. React.
Yeah, it's good. Jon Taffer, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.